here in Durban. I hope you're keeping yourself nice and hydrated. I absolutely think that that's so important. Talking about hydration, talking about the heat, talking about summer, it's still kind of like that holiday vibes. But today's topic is why January is actually the perfect time to plan your next holiday. So if you have any travel aspirations for the year, we are in 2026, January is the perfect time to start planning and saving. Do hop onto Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, because we are currently live on our screens as well. And remember, doing so will also get you ahead of the pack when booking, potentially getting you better rates and discounts. And to help us understand this even more, we are now joined by travel expert Paula Martini. She is joining us on our screens and on the airwaves of Radio Al Ansar. Good morning, Paula, and welcome to Urban Women.
Good morning, Razia. So lovely to be on your show today.
We really, really appreciate your time. And I think this is such a lovely topic because sometimes we think about holidays and we get a little bit overwhelmed. So I think it's a nice way to unpack. Now, January is often called the best month to apparently plan and save for travel. So why is starting early such a game changer for travelers?
Travel has changed so much over the years and it's become so unpredictable. You've got political climates, you've got availability, you've got lack of airlines, especially post-COVID when so many airlines are no longer with us, the likes of Kulula, British Airways, Comair, Mango, all of those. So we're sitting with limited supply, but loads of people who want to travel. So what happens is availability changes so much. And in the good old days, we used to have lastminute.com, right? The longer you left it, you were left with last minute seats that everybody wants to get rid of. And so you got all the bargains. That's no longer the case in travel. We now have dynamic pricing and it is all around supply and demand. So the higher the demand, the higher the pricing. So when you get in early, you're actually able to save. So, and of course, again, back to availability. So it's so much better to plan in advance. You can't, and the other thing is obviously with visas and entry requirements, you need to navigate that all before you travel. So, especially with the likes of a Canadian visa, American visa, you need months in advance to obtain those. So yeah, advanced planning, you cannot leave it to the last anymore.
Do not do that. And then law of economics is coming in, supply and demand. We learned about that. So not like before. Things are really changing here. I think COVID came in, shook things up to another level now. We're in a whole different era. Now, Mauritius, Maldives, and Japan apparently are trending at the moment. What's driving interest in these particular locations right now?
I think you've got a mixture of distance to travel. The go-to places for South Africans, we love the islands, right? And going to the likes of Mauritius, Zanzibar, Maldives is a lot like the Americans who go to the Caribbean, right? A holiday in people's minds is lying on the beach under a coconut tree, drinking coconut water out of a thing with the umbrella and the straw and all the rest. That is the picture that people have of ultimate relaxation versus going on a business holiday where you're in the city, you're sightseeing, buses, cars. You want to get away from the mundane of the 9-to-5 grind. So island locations are always always top of the list. Mauritius obviously it's 4 hours away. There's no visas. There are loads of options. You can go from top star to your lower, more economical options. So it's always been an easy destination. Zanzibar obviously then is the next with all the development and loads of hotels popping up there at the moment. So Zanzibar is the next. And of course, Maldives, always the water bungalows. Talk to anybody about the Maldives, and the first thing they say to you is, I want a water bungalow. But unfortunately, those come at a prime cost. So a lot of people believe, that is the standard norm in Maldives, but your water bungalows are your premium rooms. So they always come at a high cost. So if you are wanting one of those, best you start living in January for sure. And then Japan, even Americans at this stage are rather going to Japan's Disney World than they are going to their own in their own country, because internal flights within America are heavily expensive. Almost this, you're looking at the same with South Africa: limited supply, limited volumes. There are only so many seats per plane. So going into Japan is giving you a completely different culture. It's giving you that whole tech vibe that everybody's on at the moment. The Tokyo Drift, all the movies, Japan, cherry blossom. So it has always been a bucket list destination. The Japanese tourism and JAL Airlines, actually, unfortunately, we don't have them flying out of South Africa. But if you're taking a long haul flight into Japan, JAL Airlines now are actually giving you free internal flights to promote destinations within their country outside of Tokyo. So it gives that vibrant, different feel. But also your e-visa is, it really isn't a difficult process. It's not an expensive process. A lot of people are determining destinations based on document, visa costs and those kinds of things. So, if you compare having to pay, for example, don't quote me, but I did one recently. It's about 1,200 Rand for an e-visa versus going to the UK, for example, you're sitting at 4,500. So that eats into travel costs, which people don't often consider when wanting to travel, is the added extras.
Absolutely. Well, you've just basically added to my bucket list of where I want to go now as I travel. I'll just note them down. Thank you so much. For South Africans specifically, what should travelers actually consider when choosing between international destinations and exploring locally?
I think, and it's often a topic that us within the industry talk about, and also a lot that our clientele and local South Africans often talk about, is the cost of local travel. South Africa is a destination within Africa, or globally, is so internationally renowned. You've got Cape Town, you've got the Kruger Park, you've got your game lodges, you've got so much diversity within South Africa, which makes it very popular to international tourists. But it also makes that more expensive for locals. So there's this common debate and plea from the industry to please make local travel within South Africa more affordable to South Africans. And then you've got your limited airlines now, like I said before, the lack of Kulula, BA Comair, Mango. So your flight costs are very expensive, unless you are booking in advance. But sometimes the cost, weighing up the cost of traveling to Cape Town, for example, from Johannesburg, or going into the Kruger or staying at a game lodge, when you weigh up the costs of flights, accommodation, meals, car rental, South Africa doesn't have a local transport system or network, other than getting Uber. There's no trains, reliable trains, those kinds of things. When you weigh that up against international travel, you're probably it's more affordable for a family to go to Mauritius for a week than it is to spend a week in Cape Town. So that's the sad part.
Yeah, the reality. And I think here also, when it comes to using public transport and things like that, then it's a safety concern that comes in. And but we have such a beautiful country. Now, wellness travel actually seems to be growing, with more people opting for journaling, retreats, and stress management experiences. Why do you think this trend is actually gaining momentum?
I published a book in January of 2025. I can now say last year.
Wow.
And part of that, Travel with Purpose philosophy, actually, I've included a journey journal with it, which is a blank book. There's no journal prompts. You actually write your own story. And what I found over the last year is we've got so much tech saturation, right? We've got people actually getting nauseous with AI, with algorithms, with social media. We're being bombarded by technology completely, where that total detox from your devices is, I think, is what is driving this trend, is trying to find yourself outside of the algorithms. And I think it's all about the right, and this is from COVID, people were locked down, they couldn't move, and now we want to just, there was that revenge tourism where now you've kept me boxed. I now want to get out and I want to explore. But while I was locked away at home, I started tapping into my own human consciousness and sense of self.
Love
And
it.
that is what journaling brings, right? It's helping you find that sense of self. Who am I? Where am I? What do I want to do? And what do I want to achieve personally, versus the noise that is continuously coming into us. And that's what travel does. You know, it opens your mind, it shows you different things, and it gives people a sense of freedom, I believe.
Mm.
And when we start doing that, and we start moving with purpose, and we start looking at all the little things around us, we start to take note of, we start seeing the sunsets, we start looking for the sunrises, we start noticing the seashells on the beach, we start looking for different things, the smells, the tastes. You know, when you're sitting with this device in your hand, you're almost completely locking out all your senses. And I think
Correct.
journaling and wellness is bringing us back to the craving of humanity to tap into those five senses again, is realizing that is the one thing that no device can actually do. It cannot taste, it cannot see, it cannot smell. And yeah, it's the human need to be human again, if I can put it that way.
That's beautiful. Last night on my screen, something popped up where a lady was actually speaking that a decade, imagine, for 10 years, she actually cut off from social media. And of course, she had a great following, but she said that it created anxiety. She felt that there was always the sense of anxiety. And the moment she did that, the first week, it was almost like, you know, like when you stop taking a drug, you have those withdrawal symptoms. She felt it. And then after that, she just felt this ease, like there's no more anxiety. I'm feeling this peace. And I often say I myself am living under a rock, because I honestly go into social media just to post. It's amazing for business and I'm out again. And I also feel it helps the sanity. Our five senses, we really forget how important it is, and the subtle senses. So that is absolutely beautiful. And I love you said that you added blank pages so people can write their own story. And essentially, life is all about our own narrative, our own experience. And the noise that that is constantly we bombarded with is basically putting other people's stories. And then you think, how true is that version that I'm seeing of their story as well? And it's clouding my story, and so much of confusion. So we can understand.
And then you go down the rabbit holes and get stuck in this endless loop of just going around and around looking for that validation, where the only validation you need is yourself. So yeah, that's a lot of my purpose.
Definitely. You're also speaking my language, so you can see I'm lighting up. This is what I do other than being on radio. So important for us to live from that space, the human space, so to say. Now, Paula, with rising costs of living, many listeners may feel that travel is actually out of reach. What realistic saving tips would you suggest for 2026 travel goals?
Well, in my book, Travel with Purpose, I talk about some great advice that an aunt gave me once, which was, do I need it? Do I need it? Do I need it? And you ask yourself that question 3 times. And at the end of the 3rd time, if you really don't need it, leave it. I think there is so much waste in the world that comes to, you know, the trend of being wellness travel, but also sustainable travel. And if we look at the rise of e-commerce, fast fashion, all of that, it's just creating so much waste. And the best way to save is to eliminate the waste. I, over the last 3 weeks, my December, you know, getting ready for 2026 was cutting out that waste. But not only, you know, when I'm in a store going, do I really need that? You know, am I going to take that chocolate bar? Am I going to buy that smoothie? Am I going to have that cup of coffee? Do I need that shirt? I've got another one just like it. You know, when we start, and the biggest waste of all, which I did in December, was cancel subscriptions. People, you do not realize how much money you are spending on subscriptions. Whether it's an app that's going to help you create your reels and your social media content, to you know, having your AI subscriptions, your whatever they are, you know, when you start cutting out what you're actually not using, what you really don't need, you'll be amazed at how much money you can actually save just by cutting out app subscriptions. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, and then if you take that money, put it into a forced savings, you know, these banking apps, which are the necessary apps, is create that savings. And you know, I'm not going to buy the smoothie now, I'm going to drop 50 Rand into that account. It's almost like a swear jar, right? or the naughty jar that you have for your kids. If you're doing something that is no good, or you're using bad words, you've got to put that dollar jar, put your R5 in that jar every time. Do the same. You'll be amazed at how much money you can save in the long run, and all of that can go to travel, whether it's a local weekend getaway or an international trip. It'll be amazed. I can't believe in 3 weeks just doing a clean house on my phone alone, the amounts of savings I've been able to achieve with things that I no longer need.
Incredible. We don't realize, yes, the subscription here that we think it's a small amount and it adds up essentially. And then do I need it? Do I need it? Do I need it? People, remember to ask yourself that very important question. Keep that jar ready, and you never know. You can have your savings ready for that wonderful holiday that you wished you could go on. And you very well can with intentional kind of living. Paula, it's been wonderful chatting with you this morning, and we thank you so much for your time. And until next time, we wish you a lovely day further.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Only a pleasure. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
That was Paola Martini, travel expert, talking to us about very real things all around travel. And I hope that she brought things into perspective, because it was about practical kind of living, and also how you can still enjoy your holidays without breaking the bank, but being realistic, bringing in the humanness within you, and just being very present within yourself, starting to connect again with life. And I must say, when you tap back into yourself and your senses, you experience life from a whole different perspective. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's your sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Incredible ni'mas of Allah Azza wa Jal that we are not using enough. And often I tell my clients, when they're distracted by their minds and their thoughts, come back into now, and they don't know how to do that. And I share with them a beautiful tip that I personally do. That is, engage your 5 senses, because you have to be present. So ask yourself, what am I seeing? What am I touching? What am I smelling? What am I feeling right now? And you come back into the present, because essentially, where is life happening right now? We'll go for a break. I'll be back with you in a bit. It's Urban Woman with me, Razia Rangwich. Stay tuned. And Checkers Foods, Cowie Park.